The year is 1994. And in the Hawaii, what is it? Would you just call it the Hawaii Islands? Like, do you say you're in Hawaii? But then there's particular islands. I'm not, I get that. Maui and then like Honolulu. I think that's a city actually. But anyway, so in Hawaii, there is a woman named Michelle Philpotts. And what you just experienced with the podcast is what she experiences every single day. Every day, 1994 happens again. She suffered a massive brain injury in 1985 in a motorcycle crash. And then in 1990, she was in a car crash. Only 5 years later, another severe car crash. And at that point, the doctors... I'm not going to go back in time, so you guys don't have to be paranoid that the episode's going to reset yet. So, obviously, she's having some serious problems with her brain. Her brain got all bashed up. Now, she doesn't look like Monstro. She can still walk around. She can still interact with people. But there was some severe damage going on inside. By 1994, she was diagnosed with epilepsy. So even though the last accident was in 1990, well, the last severe accident, she could have been carrying like jam bottles down the stairs and be like, oh, and then like fall down. For all I know, she was like a real life Goofy. Well, golly, she's like running through plate glass windows. I don't think Goofy did that, but Goofy was an idiot. Now, she could have had a lifetime of bumbling down the stairs and like burglars throwing oil at her feet, and she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then those type of hijinks continued after her two massive automobile accidents. But what it seems like, besides her being a member of Goof Troop, is the fact that she was suffered this brain damage in 1990, and then it degenerated over time. So by 1994, she was diagnosed with epilepsy. She was having some major brain rot, basically. She ended up not being able to function in society. At one time at work, she printed the same. She would like be sitting at her desk and she goes, oh, I need to make a photocopy. And she went up and she used the photocopy. She'd go back to her desk. She did that all day long once. She kept having such problems with remembering stuff, they had to fire her from work. And then what it is finally done is that she had, like, her doctor's like, listen, you have this major brain damage stuff. And she's like, what? And he's like, listen, you have your major brain damage stuff. And she's like, golly, what's the brain? And he's like, he has to show like a video. He has to show like a Goofy cartoon explaining biology. And she's like, yuck, yuck, now I get it. So, but he's like, you have some major brain damage. And what they start to figure out is that her brain basically will reset to the year 1994. And that, because that's really like when it really had a decline. And she's married, so that helps. But she wakes up and he's like, oh, here, I'm your husband. Don't freak out, I'm your husband. Here's wedding photos and stuff like that. And she leaves post-it notes on the, like, this board so she can like wake up and be like, who was I? She has tattooed on her chest like grocery list of what she needs to go shopping. She's trying to make the best of it, but she says, sometimes it's not even just when I wake up it's 1994. Sometimes I'll just forget I'm talking to you right now. Now, that's supposedly, if you guys have seen the movie 50 First Dates, where Adam Sandler is trying to bang this chick who every day she wakes up and she thinks it's like the 1980s or something like that. It was funny. I don't think it was his best film, but it was definitely I think the first Adam Sandler you could take your date to. Maybe that was Wedding Singer, but it was just like, it was kind of a charming romantic comedy and da-da-da-da. I liked it. I only saw it once. It was just an okay movie. I know other people love it. But anyway, so that's the true story behind 50 First Dates. Now, the writers didn't pay her any money for it. They're just basing it on stuff. But so I'm reading it, and I was like, that's interesting. Who would have thought that a movie like 50 First Dates would actually have a true story behind it? The end. But then I thought, I read a bunch of articles about this, and I could totally be wrong, but there's some weird stuff that goes on in this story. With this story. Now, she obviously did. You're like, great. Jason, now you're being skeptical about a woman's mental brain damage. Hear me out. She's making the photocopy over and over again. And I've read that experience was listed in almost every article I read. They're like, she even got fired from her work for making a photocopy of the same page for a day. And I'm thinking, one, the journalist has obviously never worked in an office building, because a lot of people are that stupid in an office building. Two, how would you fire an employee who didn't remember they got fired? Like, she would have... How long did it take for her to realize she didn't work there? How do you fire someone who doesn't remember they're fired? That should be an Adam Sandler comedy. But a guy who gets fired from an ad agency, suffers massive brain trauma, and then comes back the next day, and the whole movie is just so sad. It's so sad, because he looks forward to going to work each day, and each day he goes home absolutely crushed. And then he wakes up, and he's super happy to go again. But that's not why I'm skeptical of this story. One of the parts said that, in the very matter-of-factually, they're like, hey, you put post-it notes up around the house so she knows, like, what to do that day. And let me say this, when I say I'm skeptical, I think she does have brain damage. I think they've sexed it up. I think they've made it a little more sexy. She puts up the post-it notes around her house, and then when she goes out, she keeps a little GPS unit on her so she knows how to get back home. Now, think about it, and this is why, she probably has a really, really bad memory. But I don't think she actually, like, resets to 1994. Because, again, how unsettling would that be to wake up in bed and with the guy next to you? Now, they got married in 1997. But I guess they grew up together, so she'd be like, oh my god, it's my best friend, why are we in bed together? Oh my god, what did I do last night? I don't want to ruin our friendship. And he's like, whoa, I'm way past the friend zone now. Way past the friend zone. Here's your wedding album. That would be literally the first 2 or 3 hours of your day. And then she would go up and she'd be looking at the post-it note. She's like, you'd be like, what satellite cable bill? What? What's satellite? What's cable? What is all this nonsense she's wearing? Baggy jeans and a flannel shirt, putting her baseball cap on backwards, getting a skateboard, and the husband's like, no, we don't do that. So, yeah, it just is weird. And then every time she went outside, she'd be like walking around Hawaii, and she's like, good thing I have this GPS so I can find my way home. Oh my god, what is this amazing piece of technology? It's like, as a little picture of me walking on the street. Who's watching me? Who tagged me? And then she would just, don't be afraid of the magical watch you're wearing. It's modern technology in the year 2018. It will protect you. And she's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. I keep forgetting stuff. Then she takes the post-it note off, walking down. 5 minutes later, she's like, oh my god, why is this magical device on my hand? Like, how would you even function outside of a medical facility? And the articles are like, well, every episode of EastEnders is new. Wait a second, she's not in Hawaii. Why did she wasn't? Oh, because the movie takes place in Hawaii. She's from England. She is not from Hawaii. People are probably, who know the story, are like, this guy's an idiot. I'm not going to go back and edit it. I'm not going to go back and fix it because I love that little intro. But anyways, forget Hawaii. She's in England. Jolly old England. Sorry about that. That is actually, I think it's, while I'm not mocking, I love it how an episode where I'm talking about forgetfulness, I forget countries and states. Anyway, so that's the story of Michelle Philpotts. That's a very Hawaiian name, very, very Hawaiian. You can tell she's a local. Michelle Philpotts, the Hawaiian woman who lost her memory and inspired 50 First Dates in a roundabout way. But again, I think that in real life she just has a crippling mental illness or brain damage, and all these journalists go, hey, that vaguely reminds us of this comedy. Let's do that. That'd be like them taking like a church shooting and being like, hey, remember that movie Wedding Crashers? I wonder if we can like angle this in. Sometimes it won't work just because they both involve people going into churches and other people wanting to keep them out. You can't really angle it that way. But Michelle, I hope you get better, and I hope you visit Hawaii. I hear it's a beautiful state, but you probably wouldn't remember that it was there. But again, I wish you the best. I'm not skeptical. I don't think she's faking it. I just think the journalist's take on it not accurate. So let's go ahead and move on to this other story here. Now this story is particularly odd because it's one that I've never heard of. And you may go, well, Jason, you're not the watcher. You don't know everything, but there are certain stories that, based on what you read and based on the type of stuff you're into, you should know. You don't necessarily have to know all the details, but you should have an idea of what it is. But yeah, this story really is shocking. Shocking story. And I think the reason why I probably don't know about it is because it's in England. This one actually is in England, and it took place quite a while ago, but still, quite bizarre. Let's go ahead and get into this. Let's leave Hawaii. Hop in the rabbit rowboat, and we're going to row all the way from Hawaii to the town of Ossett, which is in Yorkshire, England. Now, if I had done my previous story fine, we probably just crossed the street. I hope you enjoyed the boat ride, because this story is creepy and 100% true. Quite odd story. There's a dude named Michael Taylor. He's 31 years old, he's married, he has kids. But he suffered a back injury. He had a pretty bad back injury, and not only was he dealing with the physical pain of it, but he lost his job because of his back injury. So he's sitting at home, he's on the dole, he's not having a good life, he feels like an utter failure. Wife and kids depend on him, and he can't even really move about that much. Just crushed. Literally, because his back is all jacked up, and emotionally, because he doesn't feel like a man anymore. And a friend of his says, Hey Michael, why don't you come join our prayer group? I think that would be good for you to kind of get out of the house. It'd be a good group of people to hang out with. It might be the right thing for you. Now, Michael's like, yeah, maybe. But eventually he does go. He does go to this prayer group. And there's this super hot chick. It's run by this super hot chick named Mary Robinson, this 22-year-old girl. She's running this prayer group. Now, it was like an Anglican prayer group, but it was almost like a little bit of offshoot of the Anglican church as well. And while they're there, Mary Robinson they're doing like this, not ceremony, but just like a standard, like get up and pray to the Lord. That's more like the black churches in America. But they're singing, they're dancing, and Mary Robinson starts speaking in tongues. Now, speaking in tongues is not necessarily just blah, 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 blah. It's this weird language that's supposedly like Enochian, or the language of angels, being spoken by humans, so it sounds weird. That was actually, we were that. My dad taught me that when I was a kid, because he was making fun of people who speak in tongues. And he says, yeah, just say, tie my shoes as fast as you can. People think you're speaking in tie my shoes. Now, some religions are like, I don't really have an opinion on speaking in tongues. It's not something that I have really looked into. I think you could get so wrapped up in the fervor, the passion of your God, that you just start speaking gibberish. It could be some actual manifestation of some sort of angelic power. I don't know. Never really looked into it. Probably should, because I do a paranormal podcast, but I never really looked into it. But anyways, to get to the story, Mary Robinson, tie my shoes. And then